everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in for my first ever YouTube video. I was inspired to make this video when I noticed how little draft content there was for the second set of Star Wars Unlimited, Shadows of the Galaxy. Obviously, the set just came out. Not a lot of stores are running drafts, but I wanted to watch some draft videos before drafting at my store, and I didn't see any, so I figured I would make one. I come from a Magic background, and Limited, so draft and sealed, is definitely my favorite way to play Magic, and the same is quickly becoming true for me for Star Wars. I really love the way Limited levels the playing field for everyone, especially with some of the allocation issues. Stores, my area included, have been having, you can't always get the legendaries and the rares that you need to play Constructed, so I love that Limited just creates a more level playing ground for all players where you don't have to have open the best cards or have lots and lots of disposable income to buy your play sets. So yeah. I'm by no means an expert, but I 3-0'd my draft this weekend, 3-0'd a couple pre-release events, and I just want to jump on, kind of share my thoughts, and talk about my first draft experience with Set 2. So I went 3-0 at my local game store's draft this weekend with, obviously, a Rey aggression deck, and it felt really awesome to play. I also 3-0'd my pre-release with a Rey deck with Rey green. What is that? Rey... command? Rey? I don't remember. But I can really see myself looking to play Rey in limited events going forwards. I think she's a great choice for leader. I think she's great in limited, and she gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of your base color or your second color. So I went for aggression in this event because I first picked a Kylo Ren. If I hadn't seen that card so early, I think I probably would have ended up pairing Rey with green, command. I'm pretty sure it's command. But I also knew, because of the face-up leader draft, that the player to my left was almost certainly going to be in command. He had 2 command leaders, and I didn't really feel like fighting over it. So I shipped him a lot of great green cards and settled into my lane. Figured I would draft kind of blue-red or vigilance aggression. So my game plan, once I decided on that, or really decided on Rey, was to cut blue as hard as possible for a couple of reasons. Number one, down the table from me, there were a few people who had opened some kind of viable blue leaders, including another Rey, and I wanted to really cut them hard and hopefully make them pivot out of those decks if they didn't get anything from my packs early on. And the player to my right, so passing to me for 2 out of the 3 packs because it goes like left, right, left, so I was to his left, opened a Gar Saxon, which I think is also a pretty usable blue leader, and I knew I might not see a lot of blue cards coming around on the wheel, so I needed to snap up what I could get super early on. Because of that, my draft ended up leaning really heavily towards vigilance and heroism. I ended up with only 8 aggression cards in the deck at the end of the draft. A couple of things I want to touch on, and then I want to talk about some specific card synergies and some picks, as well as what I would maybe do differently next time. Number 1, I played 32 cards. In my pre-release experience, the minimum is 30 if you don't know that. In my pre-release experiences, I found that I was drawing my whole deck or close to my whole deck frequently. And with Smuggle in the format, which replaces the smuggled resource with the top card of your deck, I felt like having more cards was to my advantage. I also ended up with a tech in this deck, which gives all your resources smuggle. Which obviously, that's, if you kind of get that going in the late game, that's going to rip through a lot of your cards. I also think because there are a couple of cards have bounty draw card on them or similar effects, it made me want to play extra cards in my deck too. I'm pretty curious to see if my opinion of playing extra cards changes going forwards, but for right now, I don't have any problem doing that. I also want to say I don't think that this is the perfect Rey deck for one really big reason. Severely lacking in space and space sentinels, especially. You have to draft sentinels if you're drafting vigilance, especially if you're drafting Rey. I knew going into this draft that if I was going to play Rey, I needed to be grabbing those sentinels early, and I definitely would have taken them if I'd seen them. I just didn't see any. I just think there weren't very many opened at my table, and if they were opened, they got snapped up really quickly by the other vigilance drafter and the other Rey drafter who was all the way at the end of the table for me. I also think that this deck would have benefited from a Moisture Farmer or 2. Moisture Farmer is, I think, a 1-mana 0/4 with Restore. That card is just bonkers in Rey because she can buff it 3 times. It makes it a 3/7 with Restore, which is often enough to just completely shut down the aggro strategies. It's so big and you're getting so much life. The 2 times that I passed a Moisture Farmer in this draft, I think were probably my hardest picks. I was really hoping to get one on the wheel, and I didn't. So I would have loved to have a Moisture Farmer in this deck, but it's not the end of the world. The deck still obviously is pretty good. I still went 3-0, so I think it worked. I want to talk about some specific picks. I pack one picked one to Kylo, and then I was focused on drafting mostly the Vigilance cards and really trying to stay open. I do think Kylo is a really good card, but I wanted to see where the packs took me. I was fairly certain the person to my right was either going to be on Han or Gar Saxon out of his leaders, which is a little bit of a tricky spot for me to be in because it's going to overlap with me either way, either blue on the Gar or red on the Han. And if I kind of guess what he's in wrong, my draft could just be completely destroyed. But I guessed correctly that they were going to play Gar, and I snapped up a lot of good Vigilance cards, and then I was able to table a lot of the Vigilance Heroism cards because obviously Gar is Vigilance villainy. So I definitely got rewarded on making that call correct. Midway through pack 1 was my first difficult pick. I was choosing between a Fang Fighter and a Moisture Farmer. My aggression cards at this point were the 2 removal spells, so Daring Raid and Detention Block Rescue, and then the Kylo Ren that I had first picked. I took the Fang Fighter over the Moisture Farmer for a couple of reasons. Number one, I didn't have any space units yet, and I saw that at least 2 people at my table had opened Gar Saxons, and since I knew we were going to be playing in our pod, I knew the chances of facing him, especially he's also a common leader, but especially in this pod, were going to be pretty high. And I thought that having a way to deal with scary upgrades so that, they once Gar is flipped, then they can just keep going back to hand if you defeat the unit. I felt like that was pretty good, and I valued the Fang Fighter over the Moisture Farmer. In retrospect, I think I wish I had taken the Moisture Farmer. I ended up with enough space units at the end. The Fang Fighter wasn't as impactful as I maybe wanted it to be, but I was hoping it would wheel. It didn't. Okay, I learned my lesson. The second Moisture Farmer I passed came halfway, maybe a little more than halfway through pack 2. Couldn't have been more than halfway because I was hoping it would wheel, but it didn't. But also in the pack was Rose Tycho, which I kind of couldn't believe made it all to the way to me, but I guess I was getting paid off for being the only Vigilance Heroism drafter at the table, or at the very least at my end of the table. Rose ended up being an absolute standout in this draft for me. She was just absurd. Buffing her with Rey's ability, making her a 3/7 with a shield, and then if she lives or that shield survives through a turn, you attack the following turn, make her a 5/9. Happened basically every single game, and it was just absurd. She can pop other units' shields too to buff them, which is notable with the Village Protectors I had in this deck. A 2/2 with a shield and then buffed by Rey, a 3/3 with a shield, and then up into a 5/5 Sentinel with a shield. That is just busted. I mean, that's basically Child Sin. So yeah, Rose turned out to be great, and in retrospect, I'm really glad I took her over the Moisture Farmer, but it would have been great for it to have wheeled. Pack 3, pick 1. I took a Rival's Fall. I think this card is just amazing. It's a straight up removal spell, straight up kill spell. It deals with leaders, which some cards don't, notably. I think this card's just great. It's first pickable in my opinion for a lot of reasons, but notably, it's one of the only ways for decks like mine to deal with the high toughness leaders that are at common in this set. Gar Saxon, Cad Bane, etc. I don't really want to be attacking into those leaders. It feels pretty bad. I'm having to spend a lot of kind of my action economy on swinging into those, and so being able to cleanly deal with them, even if it's 6 mana, even if it's my whole turn, felt really, really strong to me. The other card in the pack that I kind of pulled to the front or was considering during the draft process was the Armorer, but I just knew I had to take the Rival's Fall, and my hard work cutting Vigilance paid off. The armor came back to me on the wheel, and it ended up being really strong. At absolute minimum, she can pump just herself, and I had a couple of other Mandalorians. Some notable synergies here. Obviously, buffing my Village Protectors with Rey was great. Again, a 3/3 shielded Sentinel is just a lot for many decks to deal with. Kept my bigger threats safe while I traded up, created more value with Rey's ability, etc. Obviously, that card's great. I had 2. If I had a third, I definitely would have played it. Like I said before, buffing Rose to a 3/7 was just absurd. She obviously synergized with the armor, synergized with anything else that put a shield on. I mean, she was just a real standout. That card is great, and I will be looking to pick it highly other times I'm drafting Rey in this format. Emba was pretty good, even though it can't be buffed by Ray, since it can heal themselves. I was able to attack really favorably into my opponent's smaller creatures and save my bigger creatures for bigger threats, which was great. What else we got? Queel, I actually think was a little weak or anti-synergistic in my deck. He wants you to have a lot of cards the same color as your base, which obviously I didn't. I only ended up with 8 aggression cards. But swinging in with the Restore still made it worth it. He can be bumped by Ray. I actually did twice, I think, rip him a red removal spell off of him, which felt really good. I got Sugi on the wheel in the draft. Her smuggle cost only has 1 vigilance aspect, which, at least for me, she was versatile enough to go in my deck at that point. If I'm resourcing her most games and then playing her on 6, it's not the end of the world. Obviously, the matches went pretty smoothly in my favor. The games did too. Couple notable standouts. My round 2 opponent was playing a Fennec deck. I don't love Fennec in Limited. I think 4 health is just not enough on her unit side. She dies to everything. But he was able to bounce Criminal Muscle with Maclunky twice to pick off experience tokens and then just trade super, super favorably against me in game 2, which caused us to go to a game 3. In game 3, I drew my Sentinels. I just built a wall he couldn't get through. Even though he was swinging for 4 with the Saboteur on his leader, I was able to finish her off pretty quickly and just clean up the damage he had already dealt with my Restore creatures and with Ray, etc. So that went pretty good. And then round 3, I was really regretting not having any Space Sentinels. We were playing for all the marbles. It was a friend of mine. I stumbled against his Gar Saxon deck. He just had so many space units and they were absurd. And I don't have any Space Sentinels in my deck. There was nothing I could do. I'd managed to deploy both Ray and Kylo, kept the ground pretty clean, but it was just too little too late. Got absolutely beat to death. And he was able to just claim basically every turn, like swing, claim, and just finish me off. And I could never clean up the space units. For whatever reason, that didn't happen in games 2 and 3. I saved my removal spells. I played, I would say, pretty defensively, trying not to get overwhelmed in space again, and I guess he just didn't draw them. Kylo Ren buffed my units, Ray buffed my units. I restored a bunch of life, and I was able to close them up pretty easily. So yeah, all in all, I am loving drafting Star Wars Unlimited. I'm loving set 2. I do think it's a little complicated, with Smuggle, especially when you have these cards like Tech in the format where every single resource has Smuggle while he's in play. You're basically playing with 2 hands and, looking at your Smuggles and remembering your Smuggles and remembering to put the top card of your library in. It can be a lot, especially for people who maybe don't have experience with some bigger board states in Magic or anything like that. But overall, I'm really loving Star Wars Unlimited. I'm really loving Shadows of the Galaxy. I'm really looking forward to drafting it more, hopefully drafting more Ray, but also hopefully branching out a little bit. I would love to draft, I don't know, pretty much anything else. But yeah, I hopefully will make some more content to put up on YouTube, and I'm looking forward to watching other content on YouTube and seeing what other people are feeling about the draft format. So thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope you have a great night, and I hope you get to play some Star Wars Unlimited, draft, or constructed, whatever is your preference, soon.